for you is, what are your plans for improving roads and any other transportation infrastructure here at Providence?
Thank you for the question. So as I mentioned, I work for LW Miller Company, a transportation repair company. So the infrastructure in the entire state of Utah, Cache County, Providence is so unbelievably vitally important. And one of the things that we need to do is get ahead of our infrastructure and transportation network before Bill Creek comes in and we have buildings that are in the way. And that type of thing. There is a master plan on Providence City's website. I have reviewed it. It actually looks pretty darn good. And it's a combination effort. It would be a combination effort with Millville, with Providence City, probably with Nibley, probably with UDOT, the state of Utah. So there is several things that we certainly need to do. We need to be smart about it. Be very forward thinking and looking concerning the infrastructure and the transportation network in and around the city. Not only that, but building for bike paths, walking paths, etc. We need to be very forward thinking and very forward looking.
I think that we can improve transportation within Providence. We, as Lad mentioned, we do have a transportation master plan. And on that plan, we have a capital projects list. I think making progress with our roads really starts with a good plan. So we've tried to do that. We've tried to create a good plan. It helps us in our budgeting process. With that plan in place, we're able to go out with grant funding. And one of the applications that we put in for is here in Cache Valley with the COG, with the Council of Governments. Trying to put in some of the roundabouts that we've planned for, some things, you know, that intersect with county roads, and trying to build those relationships so that we can actually make those projects a reality. And also I mean, transportation is more than streets, right? It's bikes and roads, and we've had concerns about just about how to get, you know, e-bikes off of the sidewalks so that it's safe for pedestrians and safe for bikers. So I think working, you know, with the communities, trying to understand the needs and responding the best we can to what those needs are. We have updated a ton of roads. While I've been on council, we did all downtown. We've chip sealed, I don't even know how many miles of road this summer. So hopefully then we got cracked in those.
Thanks for the question. My plan for transportation has three components. The first is extend the life of what we already have. And we've done a nice job. Our city manager was previously employed by Staker Parsons, which is the largest paving company in the world, to my knowledge, at least in the United States. And so we've done a nice job doing chip seal. We even did it right in front of my house. And so that nice smooth asphalt, we put down some chips, so that will prolong the life of our roads. So that's number one. Number two is we need to put in more sidewalks. Right now, if you drive down by Providence Elementary, you'll see some trees taking green. There's a plan to put a sidewalk there, and we need one. We need our children to be able to walk to school safely. We also need to consult our residents on the way that we go about installing that infrastructure, because it has real impact. Our right-of-ways are not just at the road's end, they extend into people's yards. And it's important for us to respect that and find ways to work together as a community to create transportation infrastructure that is both safe and effective for our residents. The third component is to reopen the transportation master plan. We need to slow our drivers down in this city. They're driving too fast. We've got to find ways to slow people down, whether that's through law enforcement, speed bumps, or some other mechanism. Got to slow our drivers down. Thank you.
Very good. We have comments so far. I appreciate that. You know, when it comes to roads, there a few years ago, we were repairing and fixing roads at a rate that was putting us more and more far behind. further beyond. And so that has, in the master plan, the general plan, the master plan part, when it talks about us, they have put in place a plan to take care of a lot of the issues and get caught up. And you're right, the city has done fantastic, in my opinion, the last few years, trying to catch up. So I don't have a problem with the roads as much. I mean, yes, there's another roundabout plan, there's some other things that need to happen. I look in terms of what Lad brought up is controlling how the roads are being used. You talk about sidewalks. I'm not Lad, sorry. Okay, Nate, thank you. He talked about sidewalks. Yeah, sidewalks can be in good places, but I think the communication between the city and the residents needs to happen to try to figure out what is a good compromise in that. The master plan and general plan are fantastic to have, I think you need to have a plan, but they're subject to interpretation and they're subject to change as the council decides to. And we're here to serve the public, and so we need to be going to the public and having conversations with them about what changes need to happen with sidewalks, with roads, and those things. It can't be just decided by a few people on the hill, so to speak, at the top. Thanks.
So how do you plan on increasing affordable housing here in Providence while still keeping the rural culture that we've grown up over the past couple of centuries that we've lived here?
I would like to say that I can impact the affordable housing. Unfortunately, I can't. The state has asked us to submit a moderate income housing plan every year because Providence is over 5,000 residents. So that's the kind of city that we're right, going to a class 4 pretty soon. Because of our city classification, we are subject to certain state code. And part of that is them asking us to implement housing policy. I think that we just have to be really careful about the rezones that we accept, because we've gone through a process, we've gone through an extensive planning process to look and see what can our infrastructure hold. We've done master plans for our sewer, for our water, for all kinds of services that the city provides. And the question is, can our infrastructure support that? Because it's not just enough to say, well, let's hook on a sewer line from this area. We have to have the capacity to get it to low. Been developed with our annexation policy plans, our zoning maps that are in place in our general plan. We tried to maintain the integrity of it, and it helps us to respond better with our infrastructure overhaul.
What was your name? Question. Jacob, thank you. It's a great question. And it's one that I really care deeply about. Land use matters in our city. So I have a master's degree in real estate development from the University of Utah, and I own my own commercial real estate brokerage. Where that scares you, one of the big reasons I'm running for city council is because I believe we can do this better. We can do better planning. Right now, our master zoning plan has old zoning codes on it. SFT, single family traditional. We don't even use those codes anymore. We've got to update our master plan. I am not in favor of more poorly planned high density housing. That is not the answer to affordability in our city. Yes, we need more supply. We need more housing, and we can't infringe on people's property rights. At the same time, we need to do a better job planning and then sticking to our plan. When we get applications for rezones for a single parcel that are not consistent with our master plan, it's not the right time or place for us to approve those plans or rezone requests. Thank you.
Question was about affordable housing. How do we get more affordable housing? We won't. Unless the economy changes dramatically, the housing in Providence is always going to be expensive. Can we get something that's a little bit more affordable than the current trend? Perhaps we can. And like Nate said, it has to do with make sure we've got a plan, we stick to the plan. It has to do with make sure the building that's going on makes sense for our community. rezone and try to get more affordable housing, but it's not gonna change it. It's not going to make the housing more affordable. I know there was some discussion about, rezoning a lot recently, about reducing the size required for the lots. Yeah, it will make houses that are a little less affordable, but all that's gonna happen is they're still gonna try to get every penny out of it. Builders gonna try to get every penny they can out of that, which makes them less affordable. So the only real answer is extending or creating more opportunities outside of Providence, and we can't control that. We can't control that. So Providence, we don't have a lot of land left to develop, to be honest. Everything's already planned out as far as bigger lots. And so there's not much changes that we can do that's going to create affordable housing in this community.
So one of the biggest problems that you're going to encounter is you live in a wonderful city, in a wonderful county, in a wonderful state. And it is as simple as there's too much demand and not enough supply. So how do we go about trying to get affordable housing for you young folks? Let's loosen our zoning laws a little bit. Let's loosen regulations a little bit. Let's start looking outside the box and saying, hey, can we get some business, government, inter projects working here? We need to look at our other counties, because even if we brought in more housing in Providence, it'll fill up and it'll just continue to go up. We need to look at solutions. We need to look at the state too. The state, Governor Cox has done wonderful things with bringing up ideas and starter programs for young folks and first-time home buyers. We certainly need to be involved with the state, because this is going to take a coordinated effort. Because the whole state is just booming. This isn't just a Providence state issue. This is a state of Utah, really an Intermountain West issue. So those are just some of the things that we can look at, and you young folks, we will keep working and striving and trying, and we'll eventually figure this out, and you will end up in some sort of home. Thank you.
What have you done to participate on the city council? What is your commitment to training for this position?
Thank you very much for the question. Remind me your first name? Oh, Claire. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, so I've prepared in many ways. I told you about my master's degree. I have a graduate certificate in urban planning. I've gone through the development process for developers in other cities. I've attended city council meetings, and maybe to the city council members, to their consternation, I like to speak up. So I've watched, I've tried to learn. I've met with the city manager. I've met with our fire chief in Logan City. I've met with the county clerk. I've met with the county fire. And I'm trying to gather as much knowledge as I can. As Janelle said, it is a steep learning curve. There is a lot going on in the city. From a leadership perspective, I've served on multiple boards. I serve as a board of directors for a group called CCIM, which is a commercial real estate trade organization. And I also serve as the state of Utah's Special Olympics golf coach. Service to my community matters. And all of that has led me to this moment in front of you to try to ask for your vote and advocate for you at the city level. Thank you very much.
I don't have a lot of city planning background. I don't have a city management background. I've never tried to be a city council or on a city committee. I've just been trying to live my life. But what I have learned is some skill sets I think that will be advantageous for our city. I've learned to work with people that have different views than I do, to try to figure out what's the right thing to do. I have learned to help people see things differently than they once saw them. I have learned to manage, from my business management background, I've learned how to look at issues that a business is having and look at it from outside the box, so to speak. Look at ways to come up with solutions that perhaps people haven't considered before. I'm not one who likes the limelight. I'm not one who is seeking for attention. I don't care about any of that stuff. I have prepared myself in the sense that I want to serve my community in a way that it's there, the people are getting represented, not my agenda, but the people, what they need is being represented.
Been around a lot of this for several years, folks. And, one thing I realized, and this isn't a derogatory statement about people in government, but people in government try to do too much for too many. And sometimes I'm afraid that in government, we start thinking about our budget. That money is your money. That is not government's money, and I don't pretend that it is in any stretch of the imagination. So you wonder, oh, I wonder what that would be like. I wonder what it would be like. I can tell you right now that I am a fiscal, responsible conservative. And if you think that you know how to spend your money better than the government does, so do I. And we need to remember that. All these ideas are good ideas that the government has. And guess what? Good ideas cost money. And that's your money. And let's not forget that it is. And with the inflation going on and home prices, the economy is a little bit shaky. Let's remember that is your money and you know how to spend it better than the government does.
When I think about what I've done to prepare to serve on city council, obviously I've spent some time serving on city council, but I think the best use of my time is responding the best I can to residents. Sometimes I have answers, sometimes I don't. I'm willing to go and study things out, willing to do research, to do homework, to call people, to look for, models of solving problems outside of our community. I think that's probably the biggest asset that I bring to city council is that I'm willing to do the work. Sometimes it takes more time than I think it will, but I do try to make educated, informed decisions and try to think about what kind of impact the choices that we make will have on our residents. So I just think that my problem solving approach is probably my biggest asset that I bring to city council.
What is your vision for Providence? What do you see as the top 2 priorities for our city over the next 4 years?
Top 2 priorities. I mentioned earlier that there seems to be a rift or a challenge between residents and business owners as well, and Providence City. No offense against anyone who works for the city or the city council, but there just seems to be something going wrong in there. So there's a culture problem in these plans. And I would like to get in there and be able to work with people, understand what the rift is, fully understand it, and then work on fixing it. I think based on my research so far, a lot of it is people aren't receiving the information. It's not, the city's trying to get the information out, the system perhaps needs to be adjusted to get communication out there. So the residents know what's going on in the city and what they need to get involved in. I think that's a big part of it. And so I have the ability to get in and change culture or help change culture, and that's what I plan on doing is getting there to change culture. I think that's one of the biggest problems. I think the other problem is we don't have a sense of as good a sense of community as we once had. When my wife and I first moved here, we had under 5,000 people. Now we have approaching 10,000 people. We don't have that sense of community we once had. And so I think there's ways to, and I've been discussing this with some people, there's some ways to try to bring that sense of community back. And that's my goal, is to work and address mainly those 2 issues. Thank you.
Top 2 issues for me would be, there's not a person sitting in this room that doesn't know how to live their life. They don't need the government involved in their lives in any shape, form, or fashion. My number two goals would be curtail spending and absolutely under no circumstances any tax raises of any kind that weren't absolutely 100% necessary.
When I think of what my top 2 priorities are going forward, have actually spent a lot of time monitoring this. Because I spent a lot of time on city council and we've gotten a lot of things done. But I would have to agree with Scott that I think that we've made a lot of progress in 6 years in building community, revitalizing the city celebration and trying to gather people. But I really think that that's something that we can redouble our efforts on because coming together as a community is the absolute best part of being in a community. You know, when we've had windstorms and we all are out cleaning up limbs and we're all out in the road, when we have a huge snowpack here and people are out digging out their neighbors and cleaning out the creek to try and prepare for floods, those moments, those events that bring us together, that we serve side by side for the betterment of our community are the best thing for us. They really are. We can have all kinds of ideas of things that we can do to expand our community, but if the relationships aren't there, then everyone suffers. So I do think that that is a priority to me. And then just trying to get more citizen feedback. You know, we've made a lot of progress in 6 years. And it's time for some more input from our residents on where we're gonna go for the next 6 years or the next 10 years. And so I welcome that input to just hear the vision that residents have for the city and to try to do what we can to support that.
Thank you. It's tough to go last. We'll take your answer, right? But if you've been to a city council meeting in the last 12 months, it can feel like it's you versus everyone else. And that has got to change. The organization chart for Providence is residents at the top and city council serves our residents. That's the model that I am passionate about. That's the model that I advocate for. I don't know that it's necessarily one or multiple city council people's fault. I think it's just become that. And it's time for more listening, more curiosity, more cooperation. That's priority number one. Priority number two is it's time to open the master plan. Our city staff has done an incredible job of getting through the list of different capital projects. We've improved roads, we've built infrastructure. Janelle and her team have overseen the construction of water infrastructure. It has been tremendous. Now we need to reevaluate our priorities. Are the things that are next on the list the right things to be next on the list? Is our zoning the way that we want it to be? Is the infrastructure plan that we have ahead of us the right infrastructure plan? I suspect it's time to regather the wagon and reevaluate what our master plan, our general plan, ought to look like citywide.
I'm trying to balance between personal freedom and public good.
That's the Bell's daughter.
Oh.
How do you find the balance between personal freedom and public good?
Very good question. So I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that the government, we need them in our lives as less as possible. There's only a few things that I think the good majority of the people in this room look for the government for: safety, school system, those types of things. So how do you balance that? And I think we've got it in place. I certainly don't think any more regulations or laws are necessary. A good friend of mine is in the state legislature. Sometimes he will pass 0 bills. And I say to him, that is an absolute success. We don't need any more bills. We don't need any more regulations. We don't need the government coming in and telling us what we need to do, what we can do, what we can't do. So that is my philosophy as well. As little as it takes for the government in our lives is exactly where I want the government in our lives. And if you agree with that, please, that is my stance. That is where we need to be. Look, I believe that each and every single one of you in this audience, I believe that you are all very, very good people who mean well, do good, go about helping your neighbors, doing all kinds of things. You don't need the government telling you what you need, should, or could do. And we can govern ourselves in a social way just fine without the government's help.
The effort to balance personal freedom with public goods, I said. Well, when I got elected, I ran in 2019, COVID hit 3 months after, 2.5 months after I got elected. And I learned really quickly that there is a wide variety of people and opinions and feelings. And so I learned pretty quickly that we have to have compromise. We have to be able to listen to everyone's side and understand what their concerns are, what their needs are, and respond in a way that is respectful of everyone. Not everybody's gonna get what they want. But being willing to try to move that needle, to try to listen, to try to understand what they want and what they need, is pretty important. I think public safety is pretty important. And we have a responsibility to try and maintain that, whether that's through our law enforcement contracts or just the way that we design our city. We talk about road speeds, we talk about sidewalks. Public safety is important. You when you read the charter, anything that we're allowed to pass laws on, the very first paragraph on any of our ordinances refers to maintaining the health, the welfare, and the public safety of our community.
Very mature question. Personal freedom. Number one, our city government cannot become a glorified HOA. I'm not interested in regulating what you are doing in your backyard. So we've got to get away from any sort of HOA style regulations. Number one. Number two, there was recently, maybe it was 2 city council meetings ago, we had a discussion about our nuisance ordinance. And should we tighten up our nuisance ordinance or should we revise it? I think it is a little ambiguous. It's a little unenforceable at the moment, but it should not be more restrictive. Providence is full of independent people who think for themselves. It was built that way. You built it that way. Like it or not, our residents are independent, and I want to retain that independence. It's what makes our city so special to me. So personal freedom is very important. What does public good mean? Well, that could be a lecture for another day. But in my mind, public good is what we agree it is, which means we have to have collaboration. We've got to talk together and decide what is good for us. Is it a sidewalk behind some that will kill trees over time? Is it a sidewalk that's outside of those trees? We get to decide what that public good is. And I hope that we can do that in a respectful but passionate way.
So, I think of personal freedom, I don't. The difference to me, personal freedom versus public good is people should have right to do it within reason, whatever they darn please. Unless it becomes a problem for the public good. Public safety is huge to me. If people are doing things that aren't safe for other people, that can be a problem. I used to live in a country where everything was illegal until the government said it was legal. I don't want to go that direction. I agree, I don't want HOA type stuff going on in our society, in our community. I want people to be able to decide what they want to do with their property and on their property. But we have laws in place for a reason. The laws are to keep a decent society functioning. And that does come down to collaboration, depending on what determine what those laws or those rules or regulations should be. It shouldn't be a few people determining that for everyone. It should be sought with much public input to understand what the residents really want. I remember you were talking about the nuisance thing. I was there when that was brought up. My first thought was, have you gone to talk to that neighbor? Just go talk to your neighbor yet? Have you even tried to do that yet? Well, no, they wanted the city to take care of that. Anyway, I think your rights need to be protected.
All of you have disagreements on the council with the city residents and maintain professionalism. How will you handle disagreements on the council with city residents to maintain professionalism?
Well, I think the language we use matters. I think that how we approach people, I like what you said about curiosity. I think approaching residents with curiosity to try and understand what their concerns are. Sometimes all it takes is a conversation to resolve things. So I think being willing to respond to phone calls and emails and to engage with residents when they reach out to you is important. And sometimes you just have to listen. And sometimes it just depends on the person and how passionate they are about their concern. If they, personally, I feel like my most productive conversations have been when people approach me with curiosity and I approach them with curiosity, instead of, a closed-minded approach. So I really think it really just comes to like interpersonal skills and being willing to listen, discuss it, and try to understand the needs of all parties.
Making decisions that impact so many of us is going to be fraught with conflict. That's just part of the deal. Something that I've admired about Janelle when she served on city council is she is so good at what she said. She's good at asking questions. She's great at listening, and she's really good at talking to other council members and creating coalitions. That's something I aspire to, because in my last 6 months of attending city council meetings and speaking up, I have a tendency to speak with passion, and I will not lose that. However, one city council member cannot change the direction of the city. It takes a group, it takes a coalition. And I'm happy to see that each of our council members who are sitting are here today. Councilmember Gerber, Councilmember Steph, Councilmember Nemker, Councilmember Coons, they're all here. So they're clearly invested in what the future of the city council is. So that's number one. So we've got to work together somehow, even if we disagree. Number two is how do we manage conflict with residents? I propose that we don't avoid it. We welcome conflict. Conflict means we're talking. We do it in a respectful and curious way, but we do it with open ears and we listen. And I think the more we listen, the more creative and more practical our approach to solutions can be. Thank you.
That's good answers. I will add this to it. When people so their emotions are high, they sometimes say things that they wish they hadn't said. I have found one of the best things I can do is when people get emotional or get worked up about something, it's its old expression, it's seek first to understand, then to be understood. So I want to dig in and ask questions, not in an accusatory way. I'm not going to become defensive. I'm going to ask people questions to understand what's really driving their concerns. Sometimes it's not what they first say because their emotions are high. So I've found that when I do that, they calm down, they think less emotionally. That's not a bad thing, but they think less emotionally and try to move into the logic and understand, try to explain why they come to the conclusions they have or making the statements they're making. And by doing that, then we can have a rational conversation and really understand what the issue is that they're struggling with. And we can usually together come up with a reasonable solution to what they're upset about.
Ron Reagan's farewell speech, he talked about shining the city on a hill. And I'll take that down a notch. The reason Utah is such an absolute wonderful place, the reason Cache County is so hard to find a house and home prices are so high is because people move here. They love it here. It's because of the people. And you say, well, why do people move here and why are the people so good? It's a culture. Utah's a culture. And our governor goes out and he can disagree better, and I don't care if you like him or you dislike him, it doesn't matter. It's a wonderful thing to teach this residents, the youth, and the people of the state and the country. Because we can disagree better. There is the reason, I said earlier, this doesn't just happen everywhere. Me standing up here is a special thing. Because if I was in another country, it's conceivable this would never happen. But it does in the state of Utah, because we know how to treat one another, we know how to treat our neighbors. We go to the state legislature, they're treating each other well. We go to the county level, they're treating each other well. We go to the city level and people treat each other well because it's our culture. We're Utahns, we're Americans, it's what we do.
What time and resources do you have to contribute to the city if you're elected? What do you think is a reasonable weekly time commitment to dedicate to serving the residents of the province?
Let's see, I think Mayor Drew's here somewhere. I had lunch with him today. Yeah, here he is. He told me, city council is what you make of it. And you could show up a few minutes before the meeting and read the agenda for the first time. Or you could spend countless hours talking to residents. I think there's both ends of the spectrum. So what do I bring to the table? Well, I'm self-employed. I have flexibility to work on city government issues during the day, as well as in the evening and on the weekends. I'm committed to listening to residents before city council meetings. City council meetings are a very difficult time to hash out disagreements. It's much more effective to do that ahead of time. And so I am committed to doing that as well. I'm committed to better communication. Sometimes as a city, we're nervous. And I say we, I haven't been a part of the city yet, but it can feel nerve-wracking to send information when we don't have the whole story, because there's a fear that the residents will react. And I say, share more information than less. Share the information as we get it. We don't need to craft a story. We're smart. We are smart residents. We know that. We know how to interpret data. We're reasonable people. Communicate more. And I think by doing that, that's what I have to offer in terms of resources for city council. Thank you.
He is correct. We have to spend time prior to city council meetings, investing the time to talk to people. And so what I commit to do is similar. I only work a 40-hour week job. Well, I usually stretch it about 45 hours. But I have some flexibility with that. My boss is very understanding. My wife is very understanding too, that matters. I don't have other things getting in the way of those. So as far as the time commitment, of course, it's all in the preparation for city council meeting for me. It's looking at what's coming up on the agenda and then realizing who needs to be involved in that conversation, who I can talk to about that, to be able to say, go to the residents, maybe that something may be involved, in it, maybe it's something to do with a particular street. I can then go to those residents, knock doors, and just have conversations with people. I like putting in that effort because I want to better understand everyone's perspective. And so as far as time commitment, whatever it takes to do it, I do. And I don't have any problem doing that. I'm not limited to a 3-hour, sorry, it shouldn't be 3 hour, but a 3-hour meeting a month. I'm not limited to that. I am willing to go out whatever night and take phone calls whenever I can. If I can't answer the phone, I'll quickly let the people know I will call them back. And I'll take care of things during the day too. So that's my commitment.
What makes Providence City great? It is individuals. If I walked into your neighborhood, any random neighborhood in Providence, and I walked around and I talked to people, what is it that makes Providence great? It's individuals. It's a collection of individuals that make up a city that make us great. So what time commitments would I make for Providence City? Individual time commitments with the residents.
How much time in a week do I spend doing city council? Is that the question, Lisa? Well, this week I have a meeting every single night. If I added up the number of hours that I would spend serving the community this week. It will probably be close to 30, maybe 30 hours this week. I will spend serving the public. And I'm happy to do it. I feel like I try to make myself available to the residents as I can. When I first got elected, I actually went out and met with every one of the outgoing council members. Councilmember Giles is here tonight, and I met with him and his wife Peggy. They're great people. And they gave me good advice, and I guess this is kind of the advice that I have. I have 6 kids, that they'll take as much time as you're willing to give them. So, so make sure that you don't sacrifice your family for the public good. So I feel like I'm really trying to set boundaries. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule, but I really do try to set boundaries with the times of days the time of day that I take calls and the time of day that I protect for my family. And I try to be responsive as quickly as I can. And I feel like residents are pretty agreeable. They understand, that we have lives to live, and we usually can find times to meet, and it usually works out.
This has been awesome. The youth have a pile of questions each that they want to ask, and questions that you wrote down or that you submitted online. I gave them all out, and then they just had to choose because there's so many more questions than we can get through. So we're going to do a little bit more rapid fire for another 10 minutes or so to try and get through a few more questions. Let's go to 1 minute per person per answer, and we'll go to the next question.
Leadership is very important. Leadership often public to act in certain ways. With how contentious and polarized our nation is, how will you help lower the temperature?
That's a good question. How do you lower the temperature? One, you can't raise the temperature yourself. You've got to lower your own temperature. If I have somebody who's hostile toward me, I deal with it at work. I deal with a lot of people with mental health issues that really have some struggles, and they get heightened, something's triggered them. And one of the quickest ways I can lower that temperature is just to help them understand that I'm human. I'll reach out my hand and say, I'm sorry, this seems frustrating. I'm Scott, what's your name? And just that human touch, and then that interaction makes me not just an object to be mad at and yell at. They calm down, they start talking to me as a human all of a sudden. And it's just, I won't elevate my anxiety if someone else has raised their temperature, so to speak.
Guys, in 1984, Ronald Reagan won the presidency, 49 states to 1. How did he do it? Optimism, cheerfulness, respect.
I like your succinct answer to that. I really do think that it does start with yourself. If you're gonna lower any temperature, that's the only one you have really have control over is yourself. Is try to, go in and be a listener, just be a listener. Just have to open your ears and try to understand how people feel and why they feel that way. Because most of the time, just listening will get you 90% of the way.
Yeah, but Janelle's right. It's about listening first. I have a 5-year-old where we're constantly trying to lower the temperature in our house, and it is about making him feel heard. If we can do that first, we can usually get him to come around. Which, not saying our goal is to make you come around, but if we can listen first, I think we can go a lot further than if we need to be heard first.
With the recent proposal to defund the Cache County Library, do you support this idea, or do you believe we should keep running the library here locally?
Really good question. We need to remember, when we're talking about budgets and funding and everything else, this is people's money. This is not the government's money. So the question is, should we or shouldn't we fund the library? Should or shouldn't we fund any of the services the government takes care of? I think that is a very, and I think as a government, we need to look at times that are changing. I'm not advocating funding the library, I'm not advocating of not funding the library, but times and things do change. And the simple fact of the matter is the government spends too much money. Yeah, and so how do you make cuts? What cuts make sense? Or do we just keep raising taxes? I personally don't want to continue to raise taxes and I want to do what makes sense. So I think that would be a good question that what do the residents say about where they want their priorities and where they want their money spent?
I will keep this to a minute, I swear. I actually serve on the Cache County Library Board, and I have a lot of opinions and information about this, but I think having an educated public is critical to our society. We need to have an educated public. And the means by going about that, currently, our Cache County Library system is less than it ought to be. But part of that is from county leadership. Because the state has authorized collection of funds for libraries to be administered by the county. And all of our municipal libraries within the county fund their libraries through their general funds, which they shouldn't have to do that. So I feel like we should continue to fund the Cache County Library because without that basis, we're never going to get it to be where it should be and funded properly the way it ought to be. And even work on getting the libraries to work well together. And I can talk to a whole lot about that, so I'm talking about it right.
I oppose the defunding of the Cache County Library system. The province has done what they can. We have the building that the Cache County Library is in on, what is that, Main Street, is owned by Providence City. And we have a lease agreement with the Cache County Library system for $1 per year. That is Providence's way of supporting the Cache County Library system by not charging them rent. And I think that's the right thing to do. I have other opinions, but as a city council member, I only have influence over what how our city can support the Cache County Library system, and I think we're doing it the right way.
I think people need to have access to real books, not just online. I think people spend way too much time reading a part of an article and not getting a full explanation of the topic. And so going to a library and get a book that has a full explanation of the topic. So I'm all in favor of keeping the library, and I agree with what you said, Nate. What Cache, the province is doing to support the library system is perfect. We're doing our part. I think funding, there's a way to fund it and keep it going.
I didn't plan to be transparent and communicative to concerned citizens who have genuine concerns.
I think I do try to be transparent. I try to give the best information I have at the time. Sometimes obviously that moves. And things change and adjust over time, but I just think that if people ask questions, you try to give them a straightforward, honest answer.
Yeah, listening, asking questions, and finding information when you don't have them, and being honest when you don't have the information.
None of us knows everything. We just don't. And as information comes available, we've got to be open and transparent, share that information as we can get it. And let the public know, but we need to be upfront and say, look, this is what the information we have thus far. It's like when something happens in the news and news stations report their determination what that news is, and they don't have enough facts to make it clear. That's, as long as they're upfront and say, hey, this is the information we have right now. There's more to come. I think people are okay with that. That's it.
Everybody in here has people that they respect, and you ask yourself, why do I respect that person? It obviously is because they're upfront, they tell you the truth, and sometimes you don't like that, sometimes you do, and that's fine.
Have you worked the legislative process in Utah before? How do you plan to engage with our state legislators and represent the citizens of Providence at the state level?
Yeah, participated in the legislative process in Salt Lake City on the Hill. Most recently in the 2024 legislative session, there was a bill that was proposed by Senator Dan McKay that would change our state from a non-disclosure state to a disclosure state, meaning that we have to report the sales price of our property transactions to the state government. I opposed that bill. I spoke out against it at the Capitol, or on Capitol Hill at committee, and then also lobbied with, the members of the House against that bill, and we successfully defeated it. So at least in that case, we were successful, and I understand the process of it and have participated in it. It's not necessarily fun, but I have done part of it.
And I have not, other than my buddy Blake Moore and some of the others who like to send me emails every day. I've had no experience with that, but what I plan on doing is actually touching base, setting up meetings so that I can interact with our legislators and get to know them, those that represent us. So I can get to know them and better understand what they're trying to accomplish. I also plan on, in the process of that, making sure I see when they're in session, what bills are coming up and what's going on, and see which ones are going to affect Providence City the most. Such as when they passed the law that you can't park in a bike lane, that affected us. So, thanks.
Fortunate to have been involved in this a long time. I know every single member on our community council, and I know all of our state legislatures personally. And they are all good people, they are all good to work with, and I do have a relationship with them.
I have worked with the state legislature quite a bit, like I mentioned earlier, I'm the council voting member for the Legislative Policy Committee. What that means is that we have a lobby group that lobbies for cities called the HLD, the cities and towns. And they help watch bills and they alert us on bills, things that will affect city revenue, things that will impact us. Sometimes they catch them all, sometimes they don't. But I do try to maintain a relationship with our Senator Chris Wilson and our Representative Casey Snyder. And I talked to Catherine Hughes, who represents us on the county council, and I try to reach out to the county council members that I feel like I can have influence with, and we can have an open discussion with. Ultimately, I do think working with the state is trickier than working with the city. So we think working with the city is tricky. The state takes it to the next level because, like Nate mentioned, you know, all the hearings and the rules process for the bills, they craft their bills for probably 12 months before they present it. They start crafting their bills, like as soon as legislative session ends, and they have special sessions, that don't get as much attention, in the media. But I have gotten a commitment from both of our senator and our representative that we're going to have less than 593 bills this year, because that's what we had last year. It's hard to read all those.
Do you plan to work with the mayor and other council members?
I want to understand where they stand on different issues. I want to invest time in understanding the residents and what they want. It's me making phone calls and having conversations one-on-one with them to better understand where they stand on issues and what they're trying to accomplish and what they're seeing that perhaps I'm not seeing, so that we can work in a more cohesive way and move the city forward.
Scott, I really like that answer. I think the more appropriate question is, how do I plan on working with the residents, with the mayor and the city council? And I think it all starts and stops with the residents. They're in charge, not the city council or the mayor. And so working as best as I can with them as individuals, and then working as best as I can in the city government.
Working with the mayor and the city council, one of the things that I've appreciated the most is the variety of life experience. I think Brent's stuff is invaluable, knowing the history of our community, and even his experience working as a fire inspector. He asks really good questions, and Carrie's excellent at gathering, and Jeff defends the people, and David, he is awesome with finance, and he's a very critical thinker about, that everybody brings a unique perspective. And I really do feel like, looking for each other's strengths and working together as a team makes serving on the council an awesome experience. And so I just think playing to each other's strengths and reaching out to the community for expertise, when I have questions about something that I don't know, I try to think in my mind, well, who do I know who knows about that? And so I try to reach out to those people.
As part of this process, I had the opportunity to meet with Mayor Alder in your office, and I don't think we necessarily see eye to eye on all the issues, but we had a respectful conversation where we were able to at least hear each other, and I have a lot of respect for that. You complimented everyone but Councilwoman Kirk, so I'm gonna give you some love. Yeah, she is a gatherer, especially with the youth of our city, and you've got a great formula for how you look at rezones, which I appreciate, and I do think each of our city council members has something to offer. Now, I can promise you this, I will not see eye to eye with every city council member, but I will disagree respectfully and passionately is my commitment to you.
I think give these part of the round of applause for. I would also like to give a round of applause to the youth council who sifted through the many, many questions mentioned in that. They were feeling a little stress at the beginning choosing. I think Camilla may have never chose a question until it came her turn. Thank you for coming tonight. We love you. We hope to serve you well, and best wishes as the campaign rounds up to each of the candidates. And we can't go wrong in Providence. So grateful to be a citizen here. And we'll just have time now to socialize and ask questions unless there's anything else. Okay, thank you.